Hi folks, in this video we're going to look at, we'll look at the code, the Git code, and how to use that Git code for the YouTube playlist builder. Now if you're in the AWS developer class, this is not a substitute for the lectures on Lambda and Dynamo and APIGateway and such. But this will, for anybody that's watching, or if you're in class, just help you get the playlist builder up and running. Now we're going to look at it using two different approaches. One, we'll look at the code to just run it locally, and then we'll look at how we take that code and turn it into a serverless app, get it up onto AWS. So for the local version, we just have a single user. Basically, all we're able to do is just store IDs of videos. That's all. We'll be using Node.js for our logic and for our API. We'll use Express, although it's not necessary. You could just use HTTP. We'll have just a text file for our database. Do whatever you want. You could add Mongo or something. And I don't have a front end for this, so we'll just make some API calls to test it. Now, once we do that, you'll just get an idea of what it is we're doing here. And then on the AWS side, we're going to be able to have multiple users. We'll save videos by genre, and we can add stars to the videos, and we'll do that all in a single Dynamo. So we'll use single table design, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But again, this is not a substitute for the lectures. They're all up on Brightspace if you're in class. So we'll use Lambda. So for our logic, we'll talk about how we could test our Lambda functions locally before we push them to the Lambda service. I won't be using SAM or any of that stuff here, but a nice simple way to test locally. We'll use Webpack, so we don't have to create zip files to package our code and get it up to the Lambda service. APIGateway is going to replace our Express API. Again, we'll have Dynamo, single table design, and we'll just have a very simple HTML and CSS file. I'll probably do it in a separate video, but we've done it in class also. So what you could do is you could take this, and we'll just test this locally after we get everything above up onto the service. But what you could do is you could put this into a private S3 bucket. You could then give CloudFront access to that S3 bucket, and then point Route 53 at CloudFront. So it'd sit there and be nice and secure. The only way for somebody to get to it is they'd have to go through Route 53, through CloudFront, and then to your client app. And again, we'll probably do that in a separate video, or we have that up on the lectures on Brightspace. Okay, so let's take a look at the code here. Here's just what the interface will look like. It's very simplistic. Right? We'll create a user. There's no validation for anything here. So we can create a user, and that'll be creating a user up to Dynamo. We can add a song up to Dynamo, and then eventually we can get a playlist by genre and stars. Remember, this is all going to be in one table. So if you're new to Dynamo and single table design, it'll probably be helpful, although I won't spend a lot of time on it. Again, Alex Debris is the one you want to go find on YouTube, and he'll definitely help you with that. Okay, folks. So I'm going to take the very end of this video where I use the serverless app and splice it into the front, so you can see it working. Probably be a lot more fun to see it work before you go through the hour and whatever to get the whole thing going. So I'm going to, if you don't have live server, let's go under client and in the web folder. If you don't have live server in VS Code, you can just install it as an extension. I'm going to open with live server, and we can create a new user. Right? It works, trust me. We can add a new song if we want, or we could get a playlist, and we do all of this throughout the videos you're about to watch. But let's just get a playlist. So we'll do. I used my wife throughout this. She likes country, and let's get 5 star. And this is going to read into DynamoDB, right? And I guess maybe we'll add a new song too, just to prove that this works. I think that we had, I think there was only about three songs in there that we added during the video while we were doing it. So there you go. There's the 3 songs. But I'm assuming if we pick one of these songs, we can then.
When we first
There we
arrived
go.
at
Let's
St.
add
Jude, it was
Showgirl.
If you suffer from ear.
All right, so let's add one more just to show the add part works too. And you'll have to trust me or wait till the end of the video to see that the add user works also. Okay, so let's go back to, let's come back to here and we'll do, and that's the song ID. We'll add it to country and we'll make it a 5-star song. And we'll submit. That's going to write to. I don't give any pop-up or anything, but I do give you feedback if you hit F12 and go to your developer tools. Okay, so now if we get a playlist, it should have that new song added. And again, this is all being written and run through Lambda, Dynamo, and APIGateway, and you'll see all of that as you go through the videos. And voila, now we have the 4 songs. Cool. Okay, so let's grab. And folks, it doesn't matter where you're doing this, so you can really do this. You can do this anywhere. It doesn't matter. When I say anywhere, it doesn't. You could have your Linux machine or a Raspberry Pi or your Mac, or it's all going to be the same. You just have to have Node installed, right? So cd YouTube, and then we'll do code dot, and we'll open this up in code. Okay, so once you get here, there's a folder for the local and then for the serverless. We'll take a look at the local here quickly. Let's open all the files up in case you're new to this. Okay, so here's my database, and it's just a list of IDs for songs. I'll show you how that works on YouTube if you're new to it. So we want the database, just to kind of put this all in order, is going to be last, and our router is going to be in front of the controller. And did I not open the app? And then we have our app, right? So our app calls into our router, calls into our controller, calls into our service, and then that makes our calls to our database, right? So our app is just going to run a basic Express app here. Our routes are handled here, so we pass our app into our routes, although the landing page for a get I just put here, or you could move that into your routes too, which would be fine. I don't even need this here. I could have gotten rid of that, so there's no reason for that to be there either. Okay, so because we can't do a post to here. I just had this here for when we were talking about this in class when we wrote this code. Okay, so that's that. So once we get to our router is going to just do that, right? So if somebody goes to the endpoint /playlist with a get, it's going to call into our controller, get playlist, or in case of a post controller, and then put playlist. So if we jump into our controller, now the thing to notice, by the way, folks, is I guess we can kind of look at it here. It's kind of the dividing line, right? So this is where everything stops as far as the API that you're using. So basically, you could kind of change, right, anything out on this side. Right? So maybe you want to use happy or feathers or something like that, and you wouldn't have to change anything else, right? Because your API calls stop right here. Right? So we pull out the data at our controller. You could validate it. So the data that comes in with the request, if you're doing a post, or maybe you have path, parameters or something like that. And then once we get to the service, then this knows nothing about anything in front. So anyway, let's go to our controller now. And so we have put playlist. We have about, I don't know why, but we do. And so we have a put playlist. And remember, the request and the response is going to stop here. So you'll see when we call to our service to put playlist, all we're doing is, right, sending the actual data that we pulled out of the body, right, of our request. So we're going to send that ID, and that's all we have for this, is just an ID, right? and then we'll just send back a 201. If there was an error fetching the data, we can send a 404, or if there was a actual error, the server was down or something like that, we could send a 500, and you could be much more detailed with that. And then to do a get playlist, well, we just call into our service get playlist. So now in the service, put playlist, we're just going to do a DB and then a .write. Right? So we're just going to go into our database. All we're doing is just writing and adding another entry here, right? So we just add another line separated ID. Don't save that. Right? So that's it for the database. We don't do all the CRUD operations or any of that stuff. Wasn't the point of this. So we can just get rid of that. But if we do get playlist, this is how we build a YouTube playlist. Right? So we have the query parameter of video IDs, and then you're just going to pass in a comma separated list of IDs. Where are the IDs? Well, they're right here, right? So you would pass these in as a comma separated list to here. Like such, and now we could actually run that, and we would get a playlist. Actually, let's just do it. So if we grab this, oops, copy that, come up here, and voila, we get a playlist with our songs, right? So, and there's only 2. Just so happened that one of my videos was here, but I only did 2, so we only got 2. Okay. So let's go back here. Oops. I cut it, not copied it. So let's just let's Control Z here until we get rid of all of this. Okay, cool. So that's it, right? We just this. By the way, this kind of chained higher order way of writing the code, right? We're just going to split the code line by line, right? So we kind of split this line by line into array, and then we're going to go through. We're going to sort it, and then we just go through for each, and we're just going to append each to here. The only reason I ever do a test here to see if it's the first time through, because the first time through we don't want a comma. So the first time through we just want the ID, but then the next time we want comma and then the ID, right? Okay. Cool. In the serverless version, I use just a regular for loop without using this kind of high order stuff, so you can see it a little bit clearer if this is relatively new to you. Okay, so that's about it, right? Let's close all of this. And we don't need to save any of it, and we can let's open up in a terminal. And so you're in local right now, right? So make sure you're at the local level, and you can just do npm install, and inside of the package.json, right? You're going to need to install Express, right? And that's really the only dependency we need here. Okay, and then that's it. So you can, oops, I need to do that. Control tilde too, by the way, if you're new to VS Code, opens up the terminal. Okay, so now we can just do node app.js, and we're listening on localhost. We have a get. If we do a get, it'll return a playlist. If we do a post, we can add a song. So first, let's do this, and we can right-click here and open that in a new tab. And now we should have, right, every single one of those entries, right, should come up, right? So this is the number of entries we had in that text file. All right, so that works great. And let's just go down and find something here. Node.js debugging in VS Code. That sounds useful. Let's come here. And what we can do is we can grab this query parameter right there. So that's the query parameter. We'll copy that, and now we can do a post, right? So you can use Postman or whatever you choose to do, but I'm just going to use Thunder Client here. It works pretty good. If you've never tried it in VS Code, give it a shot. It doesn't work too bad. LCALHOST /3000 and then /playlist. And we want to do a post. So it's going to be a post here. Let's go to body. And so it's going to be ID and then the parameter. That's it. And again, we'll have more information, right? You'll be able to add a genre and the number of stars when we're doing this to Dynamo and the user that it belongs to. Okay, so that's it. We can do a send. We should get a 201 back here, and now we have that new song added, right? So let's just come here. Let's do a Control C, and let's go ahead and run this again. And now we should. Looks longer. I don't know if it's one song longer or not, but let's hope so. And what was it, debugging or something like that, I think. There you go, how to debug in VS Code. So now we're able to add a song, right? Not too exciting, but again, if it's something, if you're relatively new to it, then you know it might be useful. All right, so let's. I guess we don't need this anymore. We do need this, so let's close all others. Where's close others? Close tab. No close all others? What's going on there, Firefox? I only use Firefox. You'd think it would be something I would have tried at some point. And we can get rid of that. And we don't need the presentation anymore. So my two-slide presentation anymore. Okay, so folks, we're going to need a, and I started to fill this out here already, but let's just go back to tables. We'll cancel that. Leave. Cool. Okay. So before we can start testing this locally, we need Dynamo, right? So that's the one thing we'll need to test locally. We don't need the rest, right? So we we tend to work backwards, or at least I do. I'm going to build my database, then I'm going to build my logic, my lambdas, or even if I'm doing it locally, then I'm going to build my API, and then I'm going to, well, hopefully somebody else is going to build the front end. It's not me. And it's good because you want to test, every step along the way. So we'll test our lambdas locally, make sure they work. We'll get them up to the Lambda service. We'll test them in the Lambda service, make sure they work. Then we'll get APIGateway running, make sure they work by calling them through APIGateway, and then we can test them from our little front end. Okay, so we need a table, and I'm just going to call this YouTube, and we need a primary key and a sort key. So PK is going to be a generic name for primary key. If you're like, that doesn't sound right. Shouldn't our fields be a specific name? Well, not in Dynamo, right? If you're coming from a relational database development, then you got to kind of forget just about everything you know when you move into building with Dynamo. Excuse me. Make sure you, if you're new to Dynamo, go check out Alex Debris stuff. He's one of the videos I had there. He has a whole bunch of videos. He has a book and such. So he has a lot of good stuff. We're not going to worry about any of this. We talk about all of that in the lectures. So we'll just leave the rest of the settings alone. Now, as soon as this is done, we're going to have to create a secondary index. So a secondary index is a whole nother table just with our data in a different shape, a different primary key and a different sort key. Well, it doesn't have to be a different sort key. It doesn't even have to be a different primary key. One of them needs to be different, or there's no sense doing it. Why? Well, because in Dynamo we can only query on our partition key and our sort key if we have one. We cannot partition on any of the actual attributes that we have, right? One of the attributes that we'll have will be stars and genre. We can't query on that data. If we want to, then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a secondary index, a secondary table with our data in a different shape. Now you might say, well, that doesn't sound right? It's going to be expensive. Well, not really. It's a lot cheaper to store data than it is to read data that you don't need, right? So let's create a secondary index. So we're going to go into YouTube. We'll go to indices. We'll create an index, and stars Now, in some cases, not this one so much, but it makes a lot more sense. It makes a lot of sense for your partition key here to be a generic name too, which would meant that the attribute that you're using from the main table was a generic name. Again, Alex Debris, Debris, I think. Anyway, like I said, there's a video in my playlist there. Case matters, so just like that. Again, we're not going. You can say what you want to project into this second table. I'll just project everything, but you don't have to bring in everything. You just bring in what you need, just the attributes you need, and we'll create that index. Okay, so it's going to take a second, but it won't be too bad. It'll take a heck of a lot more time if you had data in your table, but in this case we don't, so it'll be pretty quick. Folks, this is, if you're expecting this to be short, it won't be. It'll probably be, in the long run, it's probably going to be an hour before we're done here, but if you're new to this, you'll hopefully find it useful. All right, let's kill this, and we can get rid of that. And now let's go, cd .. and we'll go to serverless, right? Oops. And this is where we'll spend the rest of our time here inside of serverless. Folks, there is now a version 3 of the SDKs, the Node SDK, and I've got one chunk of code written with version 3. So if you want to see, it's a little bit more verbose, and I did it in TypeScript. It's a little bit more verbose than it is with version 2. So you can use this as a reverse engineer this and do the rest. But everything I'm going to do here is going to be in V2. We'll talk about what that means when we get to the Lambda service in a second. Okay, so we've got the code for our user, for song, and for playlist. We have a helper. Helper's going to have our credentials. So you're going to put your profile name here. For me, I'm using my Sandbox account. So it's going to be Sandbox. If you don't have the AWS CLI installed, install it. And I just called that table YouTube, right? I think so, anyway. All right. And let's go ahead and save that. That's all you have to change here. By the way, before we push this to the Lambda service, we've got to comment that out. And they don't tell you, if you don't, why your code isn't working. It just seems like it's working, but it's not. So I don't want to admit how much time it took me to figure that out at one point. This is just a general response for when we make send our responses back eventually through APIGateway. So and then we can we're going to do a npm install here. So let's do npm install, and this is going to install a couple of things. We're going to install, let's see here, package.c. No. Oh, I've got to switch into V2. Sorry. And npm install. So it's going to install the packages we need, which is going to be the AWS SDK, and then the packages that we'll need for Webpack to package up our code to push it up to the Lambda service. And again, you don't have to do that, so I'll show you that too. Okay, so that's that. So now if we come inside here, now folks, the names here are pretty verbose. It's kind of a combination of a few different approaches. One, my approach, and two would be some of the stuff I learned from Alex Debris, and then some of the stuff that I learned from a gentleman on the web called Corey Cleary. Google his stuff. So Corey Cleary, Node. If you're doing a lot of Node stuff, C-O-R-E-Y, Y, I think, and then Node. And yeah, read his stuff. He does a great job. Okay, so let's come back here, and let's see if we can write here. We'll look at the code here a little bit. Now, folks, eventually the only thing we're going to need to send up to the YouTube service is these 3 files and these 2 files. Right. So these 2 and then these 3. The handler test is just so we can test locally, right? So that's just here so we can test our code locally. So we have a handler. The handler test, we bring in our handler. and we create an event body, and this is made to mimic what the data will look like when we do a pass-through with APIGateway. So it's going to your body's going to come through as a string escaped, or a JSON escaped string. So we're reproducing that here, and now we just pass that event object to our handler. Right, so our handler is this, and this is the way your handler is going to look on AWS. So again, you're not going to have to change any of this, which is nice. Right, so we destructure and we pull out the username, the email, and name. If you're going to change this, right, these are your properties. You don't want to change this, and this, right? All you would want to change is the information. So right, change Jamie Richardson or J Richardson email, and or the username, right? Okay. So we're going to parse that. Now we're going to build a new user, right, object. User object is under entity. Right? So we have a constructor with username, email, and name, PK and SK. So these are our primary key and our sort key that we need. We just did that, and we're going to preface each one of them with user pound. And again, this is going to seem like a strange syntax. I'm not going to get into it, or this video will be so long. But do make sure you, Alex Debris. We'll look at the code. We'll look at the entries once they're up there, though. It'll make more sense. And then we can get an item, and the item is going to do what? Well, it's going to spread PK and SK, and then we're going to add a type. It's always good to have a type in your Dynamo entries. Your Dynamo items, because let's say at some point you wanted to pull that data out and put it into a relational database. Well, now everything with user type can go into a user table and such. Right? And then obviously just email and name. Okay, so that's cool. So we build our object, and then we're going to call into create user data. Right. So create user data is here, and this is going to be our call to Dynamo. Right. So, and again, this is going to be a little bit different, a little bit more verbose with V3. So if you're looking for the V3, look down here. It's pretty standard. It's a pretty standard way to write our code to AWS, or to make calls to the AWS API through code. So we create our parameters. We just called that toItem. We just looked at toItem. We need our table name. We want to only write it if it doesn't exist, and then we'll just await our return and return an error if we get an error. So that's about it, right? And the code is going. I'm not going to spend as much time on the other two, because the other two will look the same, but for the playlist one, it's going to look a little bit different because we have to deal with that secondary index. But so we'll look at that a little bit. All right, so let's test this. All right, so what we can do is we can come right down here, and we can do what node, and we want. Let's open that back up. Right, we want create user handler test. All right, so we're going to say create. Oh wait, we got to change into a user first. Cool. All right, so node create user handler test, and voila, right? So it looks good. We got a 201 back, and we wrote our object out. If we do a refresh here, I'll just do explore table items. It's taking its time for some reason. I don't know why. Here, let's refresh up here. Cool. And there's our entry. Right? So we have our primary key, and note the primary key and the sort key are the same. Okay, so let's add a song. Let's test that. All right, so now we can just jump up here, and we're going to want to change our handler. So that looks good, right? So we've got a genre of country, J Richardson. That's the only. Although you can add a song. There's no testing here. You can add a song for a user that doesn't exist. But we know J Richardson exists. We just added her. It's my wife, by the way. And we're going to add this song. I have no idea what that is, but it's I guess we're calling it a 5-star song. Cool. Okay. So let's give that a test. So we'll do CD, and we want /song, and now we can do the same thing, right? We can do node create song handler test, and voila, we should have a song added now. Now if we jump back here, do a refresh, and voila, right? So now, right, you can see that we have a Jamie, and we have our song right here. Cool. And maybe we'll add one more song just for fun. If you're kind of watching all the way, if you're watching all the way through this, take a break, stop, stretch or something. No tutorial for beginners, so maybe you're a beginner. All right.
Addiction doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anybody.
Let's come here. Let's go back. And so what we can do is the genre would be, let's say node, I guess, node learning, education, I don't know. And then we want to, we'll paste that in. And I'm going to, nothing against that gentleman. I'm just going to give it 4 just so it's different. That's all. And we'll give that a save, and we can come down here, and voila. Okay, so let's come back, and let's do a refresh. Cool. So now we have a couple of entries with different genres, right? Again, if you kind of come over here, you'll see the number of stars, right? You're going to say, why the heck is the user in front of this? It doesn't make any sense. I can understand that, but it will. Okay, so let's come back, and now we need to get a playlist. And I guess if we're going to get a playlist, we need more than one song. So let's come back here and grab one more country song, right? So we'll grab one more. You don't want a playlist. We just want individual song, right? Any individual. Let's see here. When it rains. There we go. I don't know the song, but we're going to call it 5 stars. So we have 2 of them. All right, let's grab that one. Copy. Be a lot easier once you have the interface to do this, right? All right. So let's just let's come back here. Case matters. Here, TRY. I think I used uppercase last time, right? So, and we'll do the same. 5 stars. So we have a couple of them when we finally query this, right? All right. Control S. And we'll pop that one up there. Okay. So now we have a couple of 5 stars. Okay. So now. The last thing to do is just test our code to make sure that we can get a playlist back. So we'll do the same thing, right? CD dot and /playlist. Let's come to playlist. Let's close this one up. We'll go to playlist, and we'll go to our handler test. And in this case, we're not passing in path parameters. We are passing in path parameters. We're not passing in a body anymore. So we're going to pass these as path parameters. And eventually, once we get to APIGateway, it'll be some stage URL, then the user, the genre, and the number of stars, and you'd get all of those back. Right? Okay, so we have J. Richardson, country, 5 stars. So we don't have to change anything here. So we can do node get playlist stars genre handler test. Oi, and voila, we get that back. Right? why? So, oh, there we go. There's, no, there should only be, how come we only got one? I don't know. Should be two here, right? Let's make sure. I think there were two. So, yeah. So country, and then they both had, they're both 5 stars, right? Cool. Let's come back. Oh, there are 2 of them here. So I guess it was just when I copied this. That's all. So let's just do Control C here, and cool. You can see it changes the comma separated list once you so it serializes it into an actual list once you run it, but it does work. Cool. And you should have those 2 songs. So there they are, right? Miranda's the one that was there, and then we added that Luke song. Okay, so that's it. We know everything. We know everything works locally. Now it's just a matter of getting it all up to the Lambda service. All right. Next step. Again, take a break here. I'm not gonna, but if you need to, please do. I mean, not that I don't need to. I just want to get this done. Okay, so let's start again at the beginning here, and we'll do cd //user. All right. So now what we want to do is this. There's 2 ways we could handle this. One, let me do this. We're going to open this up in File Explorer. So one, what we could do is we could take this file, and this file, but we'd have to rename this file. Wouldn't have to, but it would be make sense to rename this to index.js. So we could rename this one, the handler, index.js. Take these 3, this, and this, right? Copy those, and then go inside of helper, grab these 2, and put all 5 of those into a zip file, and then we could upload that to now. You'd also have to do node modules if you needed node modules. So you'd also have to grab the node modules folder, put them all into a zip file, and then you could upload that to the Lambda service. We don't need node modules because the only one we have is the AWS SDK, and we don't need that. Although some people make an argument why you might want to bring your own, but AWS has a version of it, so we're good to go. But what we're going to do instead is this. We're going to use Webpack to do this. So if you go into package.json, you don't have to install any packages, right? But there is a script here for a Webpack, and if you call Webpack, it's going to do what? Well, if you look in the config file for Webpack, the entry is going to be the create user handler. So this is where it's going to start, right? And then it's going to do what's called tree shaking, and it's going to bring in everything it needs into a single file. So it'll bring in this file, it'll bring in this file, bring in any node modules it would need, although we don't need any. It's going to bring in this file, and it's going to bring in this and package it all into a single file. The nice thing is, if you did have a lot of node modules, instead of having to zip the entire thing and push it up, although there are other ways using layers and such, but instead of having to push that whole thing up to the Lambda service, Webpack could go through and just pull out the node modules that you absolutely need, right? Which is kind of cool. Okay, so let's come here. Again, we're just going to type Webpack. Right? Oop, not the config, but we're just going to type Webpack. A couple of other things. You know, you don't need to make the zip file, so you could get rid of this if you wanted to, because we're not going to use it. And then we have externals listed, and all this is saying is do not include the AWS SDK, because we don't need it. So don't put that that data into our Webpack file. Oh, the other thing we need to do is this. I forgot. Go up to your credentials and make sure you comment this out. And like I said, if you forget to do it, it's going to seem like your code is running on the Lambda side, but it will without error, but it's not going to do any writing or reading to your database. It'll drive you nuts. Or at least it drove me nuts, right? Okay, so at this point, we could do npm run let's see here. But that doesn't. That's kind of stinks. npm run. Bundle dummy. You know, as soon as I typed it, I'm going to. I'll fix all of that in post-production so I look wicked smart. I typed Webpack instead of bundle. That's kind of funny. A little bit funny, no? All right, so here's the cool part, right? If you go under index, here's everything packaged into a single file. And again, it would have all your node modules if you needed it too. So all we have to do now is just push that up to the Lambda service. So we can copy this, which is kind of cool. And now let's go to Lambda. And at some point, I guess I signed out. So hopefully it's cached. It probably is. But I had assumed a role to get into the sandbox. Oh, that's awesome. All right, so let's go to Lambda. Well, now here's the caveat. Since we're using V2 of the SDK, we cannot use node 18. You got to jump down and use node 16. So, let's give this a name. So this is going to be create user. Let's start them all with YouTube, and we'll do create user, and let's go ahead and create that function. Now we're going to have to add some permissions, so we'll do that in a second here. Yeah, this is going to be long. It's probably going to be like an hour and a half. So if you stuck with it and watched it, good for you. All right, so let's get rid of this. I'm going to paste that in, and we can deploy it. Now we're going to need to add a test, but I think before the test, let's go to configure, and we'll go to permissions. Let's click on our role, and we'll just add an inline permission to be able to do a put to that database. All right, so go to add permissions. We'll create an inline permission, and our service is going to be Dynamo, right? DYN. And we're going to do not check these boxes ever, right? You want to be as fine-grained as possible, but we want to do a write, and we just want to do a put item, right? All right, and now we need our table, and we'll add the ARN, and the region is US-East-1, and I think we just called it YouTube, right? You can see how many times I've done this with students. YouTube. And that should be it. And we'll just call it YouTube put. And we'll create that policy. Cool. Okay. So that's it. We should be able to run a test now. So let's go back. Let's go to test, and we'll configure a test. So let's create a. It's funny. I never go through this way. Test event. Oh, here we go. I always go. It doesn't matter, but anyway. So let's. We want to do a. We're going to do an AWS proxy. Not always the best way to go. Really, just you're proxying everything through APIGateway that it gets onto your back end instead of stripping out what you need and maybe reshaping the data in some way. But for this purpose, we're just going to proxy it. We're just going to proxy it all through. So we'll do that. And now what we need is a body. So let's go back to our code. And remember, that's got to be a comma separated string, right? So what we can do is, right, we can grab this. And grab all of that. Copy. And we can put that right there. I don't think I grabbed the quotes. Never mind, I lied. I did. So you don't need the extra quotes. So I'll just make my life easier. I'll just change this to me. These are not our emails, by the way. But if you're trying to get me at school, though, it's just prichardson@smccme.edu. So that would be, and then .edu. And then I'll change this to me. And that should be fine. Let's save it. I think the save button is somewhere else if you go the other way. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Event name, and we'll just call it APIGateway or something. It's set up to be able to test it as the data would come through APIGateway. My point was this, so we could run the test here, but if you're in the code, you can do the test here. It works a little bit differently as far as setting it up. Kind of weird. Okay, so we should, thought I already deployed that. Maybe it's because I just made that accidental change. But we should be able to run the test. I don't know. Ooh, that looks good. All right, let's go to Dynamo. And we'll open that up in a new tab. Let's come over here. And let's find our table. Come here. And we'll search all. It's the only time you want to do a scan of your entire is when you're doing these kind of small tests. And there we go, right? So now we added me. Perfect. All right. Next, let's come back. Let's go back to our code, and all right, let's do cd // song, and let's package that up. So we could do npm run. I don't know what that word is. UNDLE. Fantastic. If we go to our song, we have our distribution. Come here, Control A, Control C, and let's go back up here. Let's go, not here, but we'll come here. We'll go to functions. And we'll say create a function. We'll do YouTube, and we're going to add song. I guess we've got to go to 16 or it won't work. Let's create our function. We're getting there. APIGateway will be a heck of a lot quicker than any of this. Now, in the long run, there's a heck of a lot more you can do than we're going to do, but for the purpose of this one, it'll be pretty quick. All right, so we can deploy. We're going to need to add a test, but again, let's go to configure permissions, and we need a put for this one too. And we'll attach a policy. Oops, I don't want to attach one. You could have. But let's just create an inline policy. Again, UIN, and we want write. It's going to be a put one again, once again, and I'm going to come here, add an ARN, US East 1, and then YouTube. Voila. Add review, and I don't know what I call the other one. Let's call this one Dynamo Put. I don't know if that's what I called it. Should have a schema, naming schema for your for IAM. All right, we can let's close that up. We don't need it. Okay, so let's add a test. I guess before we do that, though, so we have to come back again. Let's come down here and create song handler test, and this is how it's going to look. So you can copy that right out of here. All right, cool. Okay, let's do this one the other way. So. It doesn't matter how you do it, but you could also configure a test here, and we'll do APIGateway. You notice I'm not crazy, right? The save button is now down here as opposed to up here, and it's a little bit different. I mean, I might be crazy, but not because of that. All right. And we'll let's go ahead and paste this in once again. I don't know why I keep grabbing the quotes. Didn't think I did. So I want a song, so we'll do P. Richardson, genre country, and the rest we'll just we'll leave the same, so it doesn't really matter. Save. Well, let's run a test, and we should have that song now. I should have a song anyway, right? So I don't have any songs, and voila, I now have a song. Kind of cool, right? Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, you can see we have our secondary index here too, right? Cool. All right. So let's do what? So now we're at the end, right? We just need to. I'm not going to add any more songs. You guys can add as many as you like. Let's jump up one more level here, and we'll do the same thing. So let's. I don't think we need to make any changes, so we should just be able to do npm run bundle. Very nice. And let's go into distribution. We'll come here. Control A, Control C. And let's go back here. Oops. And let's go back to functions. And we want a new function. And we'll say YouTube. Oh, I did spell it right. I didn't think I did. Playlist, to make sure we choose 16. Oop. And that's it. Now, folks, this one's going to be a little bit different, right? As far as our IAM permissions go, right? So if we come here, right? In this case, we need to do a query, right? So that's the permission that we're going to need to add. And notice your parameters here are going to be a little different. Pretty simple with the song and the user. This one, right? We need to we're writing the index to that secondary index when we call to get a playlist, right? So make sure you take a look at this here a little bit. Okay, so we're here. All right, cool. Let's get rid of this. Let's go ahead and paste that in. Deploy, configure, here. Almost there. API Gateway is right around the corner, nice and simple. Permissions, we'll attach policy. I create an inline policy. Almost did that twice. Dynamo. And this time we want to do a read, and we're going to do a query. I think you can. I think we just have to. I think. Yeah, I kind of. That's interesting. I think we can just do the index here. Oh, let's find out. We might have to come back and do the table too, but I think we can just do it here. So, US-East-1. Right. The table name is YouTube, and the index is GSI1. Right, and that's where we're going to be getting the playlist to. So I don't think we have to. I don't think we have to add the actual table again here. I'm pretty sure I don't. Let's do here. We can do TBE query. We'll create the policy, and we'll find out. So let's come here. Now this is going to be a little bit different, right? So now we're not passing a body anymore. We need query parameters, or path parameters. Sorry. So we'll let's come here, and we can just grab this. So let's do Control C. Let's come back here, and we can go to code. Now I guess we just go to test here, but old habits. And one more time, API Gateway. I'm going to choose API Gateway. We don't care about the body anymore. What we care about is our path parameters. Right? Now these have to be quoted though, so make sure you quote them. Cool. All right, let's give that a save, and let's do a test. Fantastic. And let's see here, 2 songs, and that's all I had added for Jamie was 2 songs. So I don't think at this point I need to prove that that is a playlist. I think we got that. Okay, let's API Gateway. All right, so now we need a way to make calls here. So we'll go to API Gateway. And we already have a YouTube API, so let's leave. Yeah, let's leave that one there. Let's create a new one. Folks, we're going to do a regular REST API, right? You might be able to get away with a HTTP API, it's less expensive. WebSocket API, two-way communication. It's kind of like using Socket.io with Node and Express. And you might want to do a REST API that's private, right? It's only accessible inside of a VPC, which is cool. But in our case, we're just going to do a regular REST API. So we'll do build, and we'll call this YouTube 1 or something, since I already have a we already have one of them. If I can just get that typed. And regional, edge optimized, and private. Make sure you know those 3. You should also know the 4 different types of APIs you can do for the dev exam for those taking it. So we want regional, the least expensive of the options here. Let's create our API. All right, now I think the way I have. Well, let's take a look. Let's see. It doesn't really matter. I could change the code, but let's go to the client app here, and I think I have it. So that's going to be our stage URL. So I have /users, and then /songs, and then a playlist, I assume, and then /playlist, right? So those are going to be the resources, right? The URL resources that we have, right? So the first thing we'll do is let's create a resource, and this is going to be /user. Did I user or users? I think I pluralized the other one, so I don't know why I didn't pluralize this. Yeah, it is users. So /users, right? And you can enable cores. Now you can enable cores afterwards too. I'll show you that. If you need to know about cores, well, in the class you know about it. I've got some videos on it. There are a ton of videos out there. Okay, so let's create that resource. And for users, we want to be able to do just a post, right? So now for here, we're going to add create a method, and we want the method to be a post. And by the way, even the port that your service is running on, if that's different, you need to enable cores. So even if the actual server is the same, but you're running on 2 different ports, one's the back end's on 4,000, your client app's on 3,000, then you have to enable cores. Okay, so let's check here. All right, so we want a Lambda function, and we're going to use proxy integration. Now, it's not always most of the time not the best way to go. You want to intercept that incoming data, and you can validate it, and there's the velocity language, the template language that you can use. You can reshape it and things like that. But let's see here what I call it all YouTube, right? So create user, and that's that, right? So I can hit save. It automatically adds permissions for us. Well, automatically when you click OK. Obviously, you have to give this API Gateway permission to communicate with the Lambda. All right, so let's do a test, and let's go to user here, and did I add? I thought I put. Oh, maybe I put it in the README. I did. There we go. Nice. All right. So there we go. Copy. By the way, if this comma is here, you're going to get an error. And I keep meaning to remove it, but I keep forgetting. So, yeah, watch this. I'll leave it in there. It's kind of funny. All right. So here's your body. And again, these have to be quoted here. So let's quote them. And we want to add, I guess we should add Sally Cyan, right? Remember, you want to stick with a certain case when you're writing to Dynamo, because it matters based off how your data is partitioned and sorted, right? And you can see we're getting an error, and the error is because of that. Right. At least I think it's because of that. Pretty sure you can't have that there. But username, boom, boom. Yep. So that should be okay. I say should be. Who the heck knows? All right. Let's go take a look. Dynamo. Well, maybe you just trust me at this point. Oops. Let's come back here. And where's Sally? User, where is Sally? I guess you shouldn't have tested me. There you go. We just had to do a refresh. So there's Sally. Okay, cool. Let's come back. Now what do we need to do? We're going to go to slash song, right? So let's add a resource, and that's going to be a slash songs. Do a greedy path if you want by using proxy resource, let's. I guess you could do it here too if you wanted to. So if you wanted to enable cores, you could. Okay, and by enabling cores, it added that pre-flight option. You could also do it this way, so you could say enable cores. And asterisk, it just means you're going to enable it for everything. All right. Usually you don't want to do that. You can have it for a specific server or what have you. Okay, so let's go back here to songs, and oops, we're going to want to add a post here, right? So we'll create a method, and the method is going to be a post, and we're going to do proxy integration again, and we'll do YouTube. Add song, save, we'll click OK. Let's go grab a body for this one. I assume I've got an example for that too. If we go to song and then the README, nice. Guess I could quote these here if I was a nice guy. And we're going to go to test, come down, paste that in, double click, quote. Quote. And I guess we should probably give Sally a song, right? Or in this case, it would be probably one of Alex's videos, I assume. So SCYAN. Is that right? Cool. And I think we're good. Oop, scroll down. Test. And fantastic. Test for completeness. Cool. All right, now Sally has an entry here, and it's that video. And the last thing we need to do is the most difficult one, which is going to be did I say playlists? Change it here, but I think we called it playlists. No, it's going to be /playlist, right? So now when we make this API call, it's got to be whatever our URL is, right, for our API gateway. It's going to be /playlist /user /genre /stars. So this is going to be a little bit more interesting putting these in. All right, so let's come up here, and we're going to create a resource, and this resource is going to be playlist. All right, now what we need is we're going to need a resource here And once again, it's going to be that order, right? So let's come back. It's going to be user, genre, and stars. So, and these have to be variable resources, path parameters. So we're going to say create a resource, right? And this is going to be user. But what we have to do is to make this variable, we have to put this in squiggly braces. User, right? Create resource. Cool. Now on top of that, right? One more time, next is going to be genre, right? So let's come back and we'll create a resource again. When I first came up with the idea of doing this, you wouldn't believe how many times I spelled genre wrong. I had like all these bugs in my code just because I couldn't spell genre. Now I'm a pro. Right? And then last is going to be stars, right? And again, this has to be, for it to be variable, it has to be like such. And then at the end of all of this, right, we're going to have a get. Right, so we're going to have a method, and that method is going to be our get. Tick that, and again, we could, right? We could just do it here. We could enable cores. Cool. All right. So our function is going to be YouTube playlist. Proxy integration, don't really need it in this case, so it doesn't matter. We're not passing anything. It's in, well, I guess technically we are, but it's in the path. Okay, so if we go to our test, genre, COUNTRY, stars 5, and then J. Richardson. Let's put on the cap lock here. Folks, you could also add a query string. You know, maybe you want to limit the number of songs that you got back, right? That would be you could put a query parameter at the end, and that should be it. You should get a playlist back. Look at that! How cool is that? Right? And again, there's only those two because Jamie only had two songs in there. Fantastic. All right, now we need to actually create a stage, right? So before we have to deploy this thing, before we can actually use it, right? So we're going to deploy our API, and we want a new stage, and I'll just call this dev. Make sure you give descriptions and deployments. You can roll your stages back as you need to, which is kind of cool as you make changes, it helps to have a little bit of a description. Cool. All right. So here's our stage copy, and we could we could actually test it if we open it up here. So we could go to /dev. That's the stage, and then what? Playlist / J Richardson / country / and then 5 stars, and voila, we get that playlist. We get that playlist back. All right, cool. Okay, that's fantastic. So let's just do the final test here. I don't even want to know how long this took, but sorry. And like I said, if you stayed through the whole thing, I'll try to go back in any place where I kind of screwed up horribly. I will. I'll try to cut out a little bit of it. I won't cut out that I screwed up, so you can see how I fixed it. But I'll definitely try to make it shorter. Okay, so let's go to our client web app, and if we come up to our JavaScript here, and you can just put your stage URL right here. Right, so there's your stage URL, and that should be it. I have examples here too, by the way, if you're when you're doing your testing. Cool. All right, let's save this. I need to save the I was gonna say don't, but I got rid of that comma finally, so I guess we could do that. If you don't have if you don't have a live server installed, make sure you install it. Make sure it makes your life easier to do some quick testing without having to spin up a Node app or something like that. So just install your extensions and go to a live server. All right, so and let's do. Get rid of cap lock. I can just type. I guess I can't. And BERU at bmail. There you go. We'll leave it at bmail.com. Now I don't do any. Right? I don't do any pop-up or anything here, but you can see that this worked just fine, right? So we were able to do that post. Okay, so now let's try to add a song, and we'll do it for Jamie. So, and I don't know. Let's go to YouTube and get an actual song. Let's get rid of cap blocks here. And I don't know what's going on with the crazy stuff that pops up on YouTube. Let's do country music. And again, we just want a single. We already got Luke, right? I don't know who this is, but let's get her.
I'm your overly competitive brother.
All right, we can grab that, copy, and let's come back. And here's the song ID, and the genre is, again, case matters. And 5. Let's go ahead and submit that. That looks good. And lastly, let's get the playlist, right? Put on my cap locks again. And genre. And 5 stars. It was like one line that I had to fix in this. And let's go find his code and give him credit for it since he, yeah. So we had to do something right here before we open the window. So let me go find his code. So we and then this can be, and then it should play. So if we save that, it should reload it. All right. So the last thing to do is just to do a test, see if we can get a song. So we'll do and 5 stars. And voila! Cool. Those are the three songs that we've added. In a upcoming video, we'll put this into a S3 bucket, a private S3 bucket. We'll point a CloudFront at the S3 bucket and give it permissions to the S3 bucket, and then we'll point Route 53 at CloudFront. Cool. All right. Hopefully it was helpful.
Buenas noches, mi amor. Duerme bajo el rosal, con las manos en cruz sobre tu corazón. Que mañana con Dios tú te